family relationship. So it's wonderful to be back here. To your question, I think the difference, well, first of all, let me say this, that Modi 2.0 is a continuum. Modi 3.0 is a continuum of Modi 1.0 and Modi 2.0. Now, if you're asking me what is the delta and what the change is, the only change and the only delta is that it's got to be, as Prime Minister has said to all of us, 3 times more mehnat, 3 times more Shakti, and 3 times more result. Every government of his has been a outcome-driven government, has been a service-driven government. And when India has returned for the first time in independence, apart from just immediately after independence when a government had 3 terms, but that was primarily because there was no opposition in place. But in a very fiercely competitive landscape, where the first time in history a government has been returned by the people, for the people, of the people, for the 3rd time, to have that as an outlook with the final goal that is in mind, which is to make sure that Bharat is an Atmanirbhar Bharat, Bharat is a Viksit Bharat, and Bharat is a Vishwa Guru Bharat. That is the ultimate aim. And we are progressing down that route in a very, very rapid and exponential manner.
So 2 assembly elections are upcoming. And there is a spring in the BJP step after Haryana. So one of them is Maharashtra, as you know, and you have a connection with Maharashtra. You were born there in Bombay. You went to school there. You also know Marathi very well. So are you going to be campaigning in the Maharashtra election?
Well, not only was I born in Maharashtra, and not only did I go to school in Maharashtra, and what's the third analogy you gave?
You also speak Marathi.
I also speak Marathi, but I am also a Maratha. And yes, I certainly do hope that I will be campaigning there. It's a state with which I have, apart from my home state, Madhya Pradesh, a very, very deep emotional bond with. Very, very old roots in that state, even today, extensively across Maharashtra. And yes, I certainly do hope that I will be campaigning there.
So I was in Bombay just yesterday, and you can sort of literally in Maharashtra hear the BJP election machine cranking up. You know, I was with a BJP leader who told me that there are 353 OBC castes, there are 59 Dalit groups, and the BJP is addressing each one of them separately. I want to ask you, you've been inside the Congress machine. You are now inside the BJP machine. What does the view look like to you? How are the 2 different?
Well, I think first of all, let me say this, that the BJP is not a machine. The Bharatiya Janata Party was born out of a fervor of service to the country, born out of a fervor out of each individual who since has become a part of this mainstream to contribute back to India, to contribute back to Bharat. And therefore, that for you is the first differentiation. For the BJP, it is not necessarily holding on to power, the engagement to be in the hot seat, to wield influence over a certain area, but it's really using that as a medium to be able to serve. And जिंदगी में कहा जाता है कि लक्ष्य हमारी राजनीति नहीं होनी चाहिए, लक्ष्य जनसेवा होना चाहिए और राजनीति केवल उस लक्ष्य की पूर्ति करने का एक माध्यम होना चाहिए. And therefore, it's very important in life to decide what your goal is and what the medium is going to be. Unfortunately, for a lot of political parties, the goal has become power. The medium has become service, wherein actually it should be the converse. The goal should be service, and the medium should be politics. And that's the first distinction I find. The second, um, and I mean this in all seriousness. I think having been to business school at Stanford, I think the HR practices of the BJP as an organization, not necessarily as a political party, but as an organization, should really become a case study. Having seen it from the outside for almost about 17 years, having been exposed to the inside of it in my childhood, as well as through my political years, and now become a part of its mainstream for the last 4 years. The dedication with which, so what is motivation, Vandita? I want to ask you. You work as a part of the team at Indian Express, right? And motivation for you should be ideally linked to your organization's values, missions, and goals. And it should also be the fervor within yourself to be able to contribute to further that cause, right? And you actually see the twinning of that inside the organization of the BJP. There is a fervor to contribute. There is a fervor, a positive competition. So competition can be negative in life and competition can be positive in life. जिंदगी में जब दूसरों के साथ प्रतिस्पर्धा में लगते हो, you can either decide कि मेरी लकीर में लंबा खींच नहीं सकता, उनकी लकीर में छोटा कर दूंगा, or you can decide कि उनकी लकीर जो है सो है लंबी या छोटी, मैं अपनी लंबी लंबा खींचूंगा. That is the mode of thinking and fervor within the BJP. And I'll give you a very quick example for that.
No, if you could give examples of those HR practices you said should be.
So I'll give you a very quick example. So we've just had our membership drive, right? And I don't want to talk about other parties, but within the BJP, we put a target. The BJP president put a target that we should cross 10 crores, which is close to about 8% of our population as primary members. And if you take out those below the age of 18, then you're talking about almost 15 to 20% of our population as primary members of the BJP. My state, Madhya Pradesh, was given a target of 1 crore. The way the drive was held in two parts, part one and then a break in between and then part two. The fervor with which each Karyakarta worked to ensure membership in his ward or in his Gram Panchayat was something that was astounding. Now, generally, if you have your CEO and your vice presidents, all the grunt work has to be done by your stringers on the ground, right? The higher-ups normally sit in an AC office and are on their iPads and their laptops and on their phones. Yeah, MLAs were given targets. Members of parliaments were given targets. Ministers were given targets. So it doesn't matter how high you sit. The higher you sit, the more you have to work on the ground. Each MP was given a target. We were given a target of making 25,000 members. Madhya Pradesh, as I said, was given a target of 1 crore. We crossed that, almost crossed that in the first phase. So our target was raised to 1.5 crores. Madhya Pradesh alone has made close to 1.75 crore members in the BJP. So the fervor with which we worked, as a member of parliament, as a minister, I was given a target of 25,000. Thankfully, and working hard, I made close to 71,000 members. So doesn't matter how big the task is, whether you are a minister in the government of India, nation building starts from the bottom. And you have to roll up your sleeves, get down and dirty, and work hard at the bottom in the Bharatiya Janata Party.
the implication is that this does not happen in the Congress.
Oh, not at all. No question. You can't even dream about this. So I am in charge, irrespective of being an MP or minister or whatever. I'm in charge of my polling booth. So I make members in my polling booth. And I have to physically go there and make members. You can't dream of doing this in the Congress. You have a complete egalitarian structure here. Whereas in other parties, you have a complete hierarchical structure. However high you go, at best, and I repeat that, at best, you are a karyakarta. No more and no less.
So we'll, yeah, come to your role as minister in telecommunications. So I'll just ask a question, then turn it over to Rishi Raj. The telecommunication ministers have so far been high profile and also controversial. I mean, you think Raja, you think Pramod Mahajan before him. You are neither controversial, that goes to your credit, but you're also not high profile. You've been keeping a pretty low profile. Why is that? Is that deliberate?
No, I have always, Vandita, believed in life that actions should speak louder than words. Uh, they used to say of my father that he wasn't a very successful politician because he didn't think like a politician. He didn't act like a politician. And he was not high profile. I think that defines a very successful public servant. And that's what my father was. The same is the case with my grandmother. And I'm glad, in a way, if you're saying that, I'm thankful to you, but I'm glad maybe in a way that those are genes that I've inherited. And I believe my work should speak for me and not necessarily my profile and not necessarily how much I'm in the news or how I'm not. My results should speak for me. When you're in school or you're working in a professional environment, it's your either your report card or your 360-degree feedback, or in government, your CR, that counts for much more than what you may profess to have achieved. And I believe that the same should hold good for me. I believe in hard work. I believe in making sure that I don't sleep without clearing my table so that I wake up to an empty desk in the morning. I believe in slightly philosophical, but I believe in karma. And I believe you must do your best every single day and leave the rest to a higher power. And I live by that, by those values. So, yes, I'm not necessarily controversial. I think controversy will keep you in the news for a day or two at best in this environment, which has changed a lot in the last 20, 30 days. But I think that if you're at the crease and you bat a long innings and you do good, that's remembered more.
Mr. Scindia, you have very nicely put it. That's why I think I will come back. I'll connect the two, what you have just now said. You gave the difference between the Congress and the BJP. And the ministry where you are right now, you have served earlier also in this ministry as an MOS during the Congress rule. And as you talked about controversy, as Vanita pointed out, those were controversial times about telecom. Of course, you remained out of controversy, but those were controversial times. You are coming after long years back into the same ministry. So what has changed in terms of working in that government at that point of time in the same ministry, now in this government, as well, what has changed in the entire telecom scenario from then to now?
So, Rishaji, I'm going to take your second question first. The whole world has changed. The whole world has changed. We didn't have many of these around. Today, we can't live our lives without this. And I say this half jokingly, but I do say this. I think, in a way, technology is important, it's great, and it's become a huge multiplier, especially for us in India, leave the rest of the world. Uh, but I do believe that some level of innocence also gets lost in the process. And I think it's important in life to be able to also balance that. In terms of what's changed, I think what the telecom revolution has done in the last decade under Prime Minister's leadership is that it has completely disintermediated the intermediary. So there's a world out there that needs new ideas, innovation, products, and there is a population that has all the capability to produce it. But like an hourglass, there is a fulcrum in between that squeezes and disintermediates both of these. Telecom and IT has completely blasted away that speed breaker and has connected the creators of the new innovations with the opportunities that lie before them. If you've seen the revolution that India has gone through in the last decade, it's no less than astounding. We had 900 million mobile connections in 2014. We have close to about 1.17 billion today. We had 250 million internet connections, which I talk about less than 1 GB. We have 950 million internet connections. Broadband, greater than 2 GB. We had close to about 60 million. We have 924 million today. And if you look at the converse side of that, which is the cost structure, voice would cost you 51 paise per minute in 2014. Voice costs you 3 paise today. Data would cost you close to about 280 bucks per GB. Today, data costs you 8.8 bucks per GB. So whereas penetration has proliferated, the cost of service has gone down by 95% to 97%. And that has led to this huge explosion in India. And now with technology being manufactured by India, again, thanks to Prime Minister's resolve that India will develop its own 4G stack. In 19 months, we developed between CDOT, which is a government-owned PSU, and Tejas, which is a private sector company, with TCS as a system integrator. We developed our own core, our own radio access network, which is the towers and the BTSs, the base transceiver stations that you see on top of them. I'm rolling it out as we speak. And we've rolled out close to about 40,000 base stations. My target is 1 lakh by June of next year. We will have our own domestic stack. It's already up. We'll have our own domestic stack up and full service by BSNL on 4G by June of next year. We'll also have 4G saturation across the country. We've got close to about 650,000 villages in India. Give or take, we've got about 617,000 villages that have connectivity today. There are 37,000 villages that are left out. We'll roll out all the towers in those villages, roughly about 25,000 towers by May of next year. So the revolution that is taking place in telecom is mind-boggling. And for the first time, we are not followers of a given technology. We will be setting the trend. After having our own 4G stack, switching that 4G stack to 5G, we'll start doing that by April, May of next year. We've also put in place the Bharat 6G Alliance, which will set the standards for 6G. So just to explain to all our viewers, and I was agnostic of this before I became minister as well, before a technology is promulgated, the standards are set by ITU and 3GPP, the International Telecom Union. So before 2G came in, the standards are set for 2G, so that it's universal across the world. Before 3G came in, the standards are set. So we're right now in the mode of setting the standards for 6G worldwide. India has never been a part of this. We want a part of it in 2G, 3G, 4G, 5G. For the first time, Bharat 6G Alliance has been set up almost a year and a half, 2 years ago. We've introduced papers in the ITU and the 3GPP, which have been accepted. For the first time in the history of India, Bharat 5I has come in, which is to extend connectivity to rural India, which has been accepted as a standard in the world body. So India is now there in the standard setting. Our goal is to set 10% of the patents for 6G. So we will be setting the trend. And which is why I say that we followed the world in 4G, we marched with the world in 5G, but we will lead the world in 6G.
Yes, that's very nicely put. But in this whole revolution, in this whole growth in the in 6G, where we are part of the standardization setting mechanism, but somehow in this whole revolution, our PSU telecom operators have missed the bus, it seems. If we look BSNL, it has always been weak. Of course, there have been attempts to put it on track. MTNL has been recent in news for defaulting on its loans with State Bank of India. PSU basically bank marking its account as NPA. So 92% of market share is with private operators today. It's MTNL, BSNL together, it's about 8% back. So do we really need them? That is my first question. Do we really need them? Will they be able to at all compete with them in today's, because they are anyway running behind? Meaning a BSNL is now starting 4G when others have moved to 5G. Or is there an alternative plan? You were earlier in Civil Aviation Ministry, where something like what we did for Air India, something similar can be done with these PSU firms in the telecom sector.
So thank you for that question. I think it's an important question. And the key issue is that as a democracy and as a country that is forward-looking, as a country that aims to be a global leader, as a country that aims to be a Vishwa Bandhu or a Vishwa Bharat by 2047, what is extremely important is to be able to provide the ubiquity of opportunity to every single citizen in our country. That's 140 crore people, which will go to about 160 crore before population stabilizes in our country. And even today, it is only BSNL that is reaching the last village in our country in terms of telecom service. It is only BSNL that is providing that ubiquity of opportunity. And that ubiquity of opportunity is not only in terms of the instrument that you have in your hand, but in that instrument, that's only a carriageway. That's only a highway. That carriageway and highway enables and carries millions of opportunities your way. And let me give you an example of that. As donor minister right now, I released a portal, a NERAS portal in the Northeast for our agrarian sector and our SHGs, linking farmers directly to markets on your mobile, on your computer. And I put a what I thought was not necessarily a modest target. It wasn't a aggressive target, but it certainly was not a modest target. I said we should try and achieve 1 crore of sales within, let's say, 3 months. In 3 months, that portal alone has consolidated over 8,000 farmers, and we've achieved already 1.5 to 2 crore of sales between the computers and the handheld devices. Now, that's the kind of opportunity that this is giving to my farmer in the back of beyond to connect with domestic markets as well as international markets. That is only provided at the last mile through BSNL today. And let me tell you, Rishiraj, I really believe that BSNL has tremendous capabilities. Our family, I wouldn't want to use the word employees, our family, because for me, my department post Dakia is my family. My BSNL worker is my family, has tremendous potential. It just needs to be triggered. You said that we are behind the curve. Yes, we are behind the curve, but we are intentionally behind the curve. And why is that? Because we chose the hard way. I'm not saying that Vandita ji chose the easy way or X chose the easy way, but it's very easy to take someone else's equipment and set it up and carry your network. And I completely understand it, because your business is not to manufacture the equipment. Your business is to provide the service, and therefore you will take whatever's available. BSNL chose the hard route. BSNL said, we will be Atmanirbhar in our equipment. We will make Bharatiya equipment, and on that Bharatiya equipment, we will provide 4G to every single customer across our country. Not an easy decision. Not an easy route to take. Unproven. But it was a gamble. But let me dare say that that gamble has worked. Because today 4G, our domestic 4G is a proven technology. And to move from 4G to 5G is not going to be that difficult. Yes, we are catching up today, but we hope to lead tomorrow. In terms of financials, yes, BSNL was bleeding. But the last 2 years, we've had a positive EBITDA. So we are not in the red on EBITDA. We have a positive EBITDA. And as far as MTNL is concerned, the operations have been taken over by BSNL, and the loans are guaranteed by Government of India. So no bank has to worry with regard to NPA, because there's a sovereign guarantee from Government of India on that. So we need to be positive. Our PSUs are hitting Fortune 500 company standards. Our PSUs today are leading the world. And I do hope, I can't guarantee you, but I do hope that BSNL in the days to come, just as it is in the last 3 months, we have added subscribers every single month in the last 3 months. I don't want to take companies' names, because I'm not Minister of BSNL. I'm Minister of Communications. So for me, whether you're BSNL or X, Y, or Z, are equally important to me. But I'm proud to say that subscribers have ported through MNP, mobile number portability. They have ported from other telcos to BSNL in the last 3 months. So our subscriber base has grown, and not by 10,000 or 50,000, close to 50 to 60 lakhs. Now the challenge is, are you going to be able to retain your customers? So the first challenge for any company is customer acquisition. The second and more difficult challenge is customer retention. And the third challenge is customer satisfaction. So BSNL has been able to do the first. Now it has to concentrate on the second and the third. And therefore, it has to serve its customers, it has to raise its customer sat, and it has to provide new value. Which is why yesterday, you must have read, we inaugurated 7 new services by BSNL, which have not been done before. You were talking about being behind the curve. We've introduced 5G for captive mining as a test case, where through your phones, your mobiles, you will control the heavy JCB and excavators that go into a mine on a BSNL network. On a BSNL network, you have many value-added services that we've introduced yesterday. So BSNL today is going to be at the forefront and not a follower in the days to come.
Minister, you just mentioned donor. That's your other donor,
Yes.
your other ministry.
Yes.
So if I could just put in a question about your other ministry. So there was a great push in the Northeast by the Modi government. The Prime Minister described the Northeast as Ashtalakshmi also. But we have Manipur. The violence has been almost unabated since May 2023. So we are almost 19 months of violence. So your ministry, for instance, you look at development in the Northeast, but a precursor for development and a prerequisite has to be stability and peace. So what is the role of your ministry now? I mean, what is the challenge you face with this kind of unrelenting and prolonged violence in one state of the Northeast?
So I think I'm glad you qualified that. Uh, I think it would be a misnomer and misplaced to say that the Northeast has probably gone through the longest period of tranquility and stability and development probably in its history in the last decade under Prime Minister's leadership. Number one. Number two, you're absolutely right. The Prime Minister's prerogative and his focus on the Northeast, which was earlier seen as the last fringes of our nation, to becoming the first touch point of our nation. It's a viewpoint which has completely changed the way the Northeast was perceived and is perceived. The Prime Minister himself, the only Prime Minister in our country to have made 62 visits to the Seven Sisters and Sikkim in his tenure of a decade. 62 visits. No Prime Minister in their tenure has made so many visits. If you look at the capital expenditure that has been put forward by Government of India, the Northeast was an area that received from my department close to about, in 2014, 2,000 crores as budgetary support to donor. Today, it's upwards of 6,000 crores. So there's a 3x multiplication there. If you look at the 10% gross budgetary support that all balance 54 line ministries have to give to the Northeast, that figure used to be close to about 20,000 crores in 2014. It's today 1,03,000 crores. From a sectoral point of view, you had 9 airports in the Northeast in 2017. There were 2 states that did not even have an airport 70 years after independence. Arunachal Pradesh and Sikkim didn't even have an airport. They had no air connectivity. Today, all states in the Northeast have air connectivity. From 9 airports, in 10 years, we've gone to 17 airports. We've converted many of our ALGs, advanced landing grounds on the border areas, if you catch my drift, into civilian airports. On railways, we've got close to about 16 projects that are ongoing with a capex of 88,000 crores. 10 years ago, we used to roll out 88 kilometers of rail lines per year. Today, we're rolling out 168 kilometers of rail lines per year, a 3x multiple. The highest rail bridge in the world is being built by our Indian Railways. We are drilling through mountains to provide access by rail in the Northeast. On roads, we have built 45,000 kilometers of roads in the last 10 years with a budgetary support of 50,000 crores. 6,000 crores of national highways. We had a single one waterway. The mighty Brahmaputra runs through the Northeast, to name one river. We had only a single waterway in the Northeast. Today, we have 20 waterways in the Northeast. This, for you, is just a vignette of the exponential growth that the Northeast has seen in terms of development. Private sector participation. India, for the first time in her history, is doing backward integration and setting up fabs in India. Inconceivable. No one could dream of it. Prime Minister resolved that we need to set up semiconductor fabs in India. Where is the first fab being put? In Assam. 40,000 crores. One single investment.
But Minister, Manipur.
Well, Manipur, let me tell you, Vandita, is not something that's happened yesterday. You're as aware as I am that the Manipur issue has been an issue for the last 4 decades. It certainly has the highest attention of government and the Prime Minister. We're working at it every single day, but it is a legacy issue. We have to face that. That doesn't mean that you step away from it. You have to confront it and you have to resolve it to the best of your ability. But we are working at it. But in the interim of that, the Northeast has to grow as a growth engine of India. And it is geographically amazingly placed. Our East and our South fully connected with the Northeast. Why can't we thinking of building highways that will go all the way down to Myanmar and Bangladesh? Our coastal shipping area should go from ports in Bangladesh straight to Calcutta. So there are tremendous possibilities, which is what this government is working on. But at the same time, you do have issues. There is no government that is not faced without issues. But we will try and resolve it to the best of our ability.
While we talking about Northeast and connectivity, I would like to bring in the satellite connectivity issue, because obviously it is for far-flung, remote, hilly, those terrain where terrestrial network doesn't reach, and Northeast is also one of those regions. There are regions over there. And a lot of thing was done by the government towards that, and in the Telecom Act, that spectrum for this will be allocated through administrative mechanism, of course with cost, not through auctions, by putting it in Schedule 1 of the Telecom Act. But suddenly these noises by the industry groups, that there's particular companies and all, etc., I won't name them, that it should be through auction. Of course, you stood your ground, you said, no, it will not be without cost, but it will be through administrative mechanism, because nowhere in the world it's done through auctions. Your stand was appreciated by Elon Musk, who thanked you. So do you feel that, these are just irritants which obviously certain lobby groups always do in telecom sector to derail whenever the things are going fine? Is it that kind? How do you think you will tackle this particular dissonance which has come at this point of time?
With confidence.
You will go ahead with the administrative mechanism. There's no question.
I am repeating, with confidence. If your conscience is clear, your heart is in the right place, take the most difficult decision.
That's a perfect, that's a very nice stand which you have taken, because just at the time
I believe in that.
Just at the time we thought that, the legacy issues have been resolved,
If you believe you're right and you have conviction and you have conviction and belief, stick your ground.
That's perfectly fine. But Mr. Scindia, if I can come to another issue, because everybody is a telecom user, revolution, everything is fine. BSNL, you spoke, all the targets and everything, and how they are in a way now ahead of the curve also. But there's one thing which is bothering everybody, disturbing everybody, including you, me, everybody, that is spam calls. The number of calls have increased, the data has...
Right, it's really a pain, isn't it?
So how do you tackle it? Personally, if you...
we're already tackling it. I'm so glad you asked me the question. So here's my hat, as not as a minister, but as a customer and a consumer. It's really irritating when your phone is ringing all the time and it's all either marketing calls or spam calls. So here's what we've done. The first thing that we've done is 17th of October, DOT along with all the telcos have released a successful version of ensuring that we disengage spoof calls. So let me explain what that is. So you get a call on your mobile with a +91 number. And it's actually not a domestic call. It's an international company using an international server that's connecting, masquerading as a +91 call that's coming onto your phone. And the first thing that we've done with that software is that in the last, today is the 22nd. So in the last 5 days, we have stopped close to about 1.35 crore calls per day. 1.35 crore calls per day from going through. That means almost close to 7 crore calls have been blocked by the software. Number one. Number two, in terms of people who use the mobile phones for financial fraud or cybercrime, we've disconnected close to about 1.77 crore mobile numbers. And similarly, stolen mobiles, close to about 14 to 15 lakh mobile numbers. So this is a scourge. Technology brings you to the exponential advantages, but it also gives an opportunity for people to misuse it. And that's where the regulatory system has to come in. So since the day I took over as minister, That's one of the things that I put in on my dashboard. Because as a consumer, like everyone else in this room or in this garden, was harassed. And we need to make sure that we stop this. And I will not stop until every single person stops getting harassed. Let me guarantee you that.
Minister, when you made the transition from the Congress to the BJP, so how difficult was it? And is it possible to make a clean break when you've had relationships in a party for decades? You've had 3 generations in politics now, and you have so many relationships, I'm sure personal relationships in the Congress party. Is it possible to draw that line between politics and personal? That's one. And the second part of my question is, the Congress had a way of functioning. They had.
So let me answer your first question, then we follow it up. I think that's a very important question, Vandita. And I think, again, I think it's extremely important to go back in time. For me, the Bharatiya Janata Party was very much a part of my life and my DNA. Let's not forget that my grandmother, Rajmata Sahab, was one of the founder members of the BJP. And so as a child, I have seen all the stalwarts of the BJP as a 4, 5, 6-year-old child, some of whom are not with us anymore. So for me, unlike for others, it was not a party that I was not familiar with or accustomed to. Second, even when I was in the Congress, I had many people with whom I had very deep personal relationships in other parties, including the BJP. So for me, on a personal front, so there are 2 parts. There's a professional front and there's a personal front. On the personal front, it wasn't a difficult switch for me because it wasn't something that was alien to me. It was very much a part of my childhood. And then even in my political career, I had relationships across the aisle. Number one. So for me, it was in many ways a coming home. The other question that you asked was with regard to separating the personal and the professional. I think in life, it's extremely important to understand that you have relationships and you have a professional relationship and you have a personal relationship. And the two don't necessarily have to be in conflict, right? You know where to draw the line on a personal relationship and you must know where to draw the line on a professional relationship. And that must come from within.
So the 2024 Lok Sabha result, the BJP suffered a setback. The Congress nearly doubled its tally. How do you look at the Congress's 99?
Well, that's how you frame it. I frame it a different way. That it was a historic win for the BJP. A party that has no political party in independent India. Again, with a caveat, because there was no opposition then. No political party in independent India has ever won an election for the third time on its own strength. And the BJP is the only party to have been able to achieve that 3 times in a row under the leadership of Prime Minister Narendra Modi.
No, so even if...
Number one.
Yeah, if the BJP...
No, number one. Number two, you talked about the Congress. Sure. They certainly have gone from 52 or 53 to 99. Still double digits. 2 statistics I want to put in front of you. And I think it would do well for every congressperson and congressperson to internalize these statistics. Take the number of seats the Congress won in 2014. Take the number of seats the Congress won in 2019. Take the number of seats the Congress won in 2024. Add them all up. Take that combined number. Over 15 years, as the total number of seats the Congress won in this election. Even then, the Congress has not reached 240. And the third point, before you pick up your mic, take all the seats in which the Congress party has gone head-to-head with the BJP, one-on-one. The Congress's hit ratio is not even 25%. So it's 75% to 25%. And that's why, unfortunately, because it's always good to have a robust opposition, the Congress has actually become a boj on even its coalition partners. This India alliance, the Congress has actually become a burden on its alliance partners. And I'm not one to preach or to profess what another party should do. And I'm saying this half in jest, so please take it for what it's worth. There are those who know how to snatch victory from the jaws of defeat. And then there are those who know how to snatch defeat from the jaws of victory.
Okay, so we have Anand Goenka now joining us to do the famous rapid fire with the minister.
Oh God, you got someone training their guns on me. So Anant, you're going to
Yeah,
train
there
your
he
guns
is.
on me, huh?
No, not at all. And actually, we are so nervous about tech.
Should I be
and
looking there? Where should I be looking?
Can you hear me though? Is the audio fine?
Yeah, but I don't know whether I should be looking at you at the screen or at the camera, or where.
No,
where
you can look at the screen. You can look at the screen. You have a
Okay.
camera pointed at you in a way which it looks like you're looking at me.
Yeah.
So we're very nervous about tech generally, but because you are the guest today, we say we'll take a chance on the internet, and we're very confident it will work. So.
By the way, I have my fingers crossed for you.
Okay. No. Okay. No. I thank you. Thank you. So
You catch my drift.
Okay, you've been communicated why I'm not there in person. I want to just kind of start because I heard you mentioning Rajmata, and you know that she's somebody I feel very warm and close to. So I'll just share a short story. I don't know whether I've told you this before. The audience would love it. She was staying at home. I think I must have been 9 years old when the bomb blast at Air India happened. And it was my mom, it was her and me, three of us. And we obviously evacuated. We got into a car. We drove out of Express Towers. And literally, Rajma, as you know, when your grandmother travels, she's a queen. She travels with a lot of people. Her stuff starts coming, 2 days before she arrives. So for us to just take her in one kind of esteem and just move was something quite, was a big deal in itself. And this blast happened. We were all lost. And we're driving out of Express Towers, and in front of the car is an ankle, just a human ankle, just one kind of like a bloody ankle. And we were all obviously, very freaked out. And Rajmata's immediate comment was to open the door and say, "Jaldi se jaake dekho, ye aadmi zinda hai ki nahi." And for me, that was the first time I really saw. What royalty, means in terms of service at that young age. So you mentioned her, and I wanted to kind of say the story, and I wanted to segue that into the rapid fire. So the rapid fire. So have fun.
I don't know the rapid fire.
The rapid fire is one where you just have to have a lot of fun with the questions and keep your answers short. But my first one is a segue, is the right segue for the one way in which royalty in India today in the year 2024 is different from regular folk.
No different. Why should it be different? It's an egalitarian society.
Okay.
You're one among 140 crore.
Okay, perfect. The one monarchy outside India that you look up to.
I can't think of any. You ask me multiple leaders that I look up to, yes, but if you, and it doesn't have to be political, I can't think of any monarchy I look up to. No,
Okay.
I believe that's a thing of the past.
Okay.
I believe it's something you should certainly cherish and something that you're proud of, but it's something of the past.
Okay. The one moment or episode in your career that you are most proud of?
When I was able to, so I was in boarding school, Anand, and apart from academics and sports, the beauty of boarding school is that mandatorily you have to do some social, useful, productive work, which is called SUPW.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I did completely voluntarily in that ambit was I volunteered and I decided to teach uh, uh, my blind family member his B.Ed course. So I spent 6 months with him and I taught him his B.Ed course and he passed his B.Ed exam.
Wonderful. The one regret in your professional career?
No regrets. I believe that I don't have any. I don't have any regrets. I believe that you must face ups and downs of life with equanimity, with humility, and with patience. And you need to just ride the wave and go with the flow and try and make your mark with sheer dint of hard work and a sense of service.
Okay, what's that one magic with which over successive governments now Indore remains the cleanest city in India?
It's people.
The one critical asset the BJP has, which the Congress doesn't, beyond the Prime Minister?
Sense of service, a sense of devotion to Bharat Mata, and a sense of country before self.
The one critical asset the Congress has, which the BJP doesn't?
I wouldn't know whether I don't know whether you'd call it an asset or not, but I guess if at all, its length of history.
I'll give you a framework that Prashant Kishore gave us: man, message, machinery, money. 4 M's. Is there any particular M you think of the Congress?
But first of all, I wouldn't want to count machinery and money as an asset. I think an asset is not in public service. Assets are not defined by balance sheets. Assets are defined by intangibles. And what do I mean by that? Assets are defined by emotions. Assets are defined by not what you would want someone to believe, but what they perceive of you. And it's that intangible emotion of what you communicate to them, not only through your spoken word, but by your actions. And that counts for much more than any balance sheet asset like machinery or money or whatever else.
Yeah, yeah. So the one critical asset the Congress has, which sorry, I just sitting in the BJP, the one thing you miss about the Congress party, is there anything you miss about the Congress party?
Nothing.
Okay, sitting in the BJP, the one thing you feel a sense of relief or good riddance with regards to the Congress party?
I am not one in life to conspire, bemean, put down. It's not a Scindia gene. It wasn't with my grandmother. It wasn't with my father. It's not with me. Move on in life. Move on in life and move forward and serve.
Okay. So your advice to the next Congress leader the BJP has approached to switch sides?
What are you waiting for?
Okay. If Sachin Pilot comes to you for advice on his political career today, what would you tell him?
I'm not anyone to give anyone political advice on their political career. I believe that And I think the way that you framed it is where I'd like to catch you. Politics is not about a career. That's the problem. Politics should be about service. When you enter the field of politics, you're entering a public service field. It's got to be the people above you. And that's what I was talking to Vandita about. लक्ष्य राजनीति नहीं होनी चाहिए, लक्ष्य जनसेवा होनी चाहिए. Move with that. If you want to take your nation forward, that's the higher ideal. Not about yourself. You're here tomorrow, you won't be here tomorrow. People will remember you if you've done good. And what do you mean by done good? What you mean by done good is not how many times you won an election or what post you held. It's about the amount of people you've touched. It's about the amount of difference you made in their lives. That's how people remember you.
Okay, fair. How many functioning telecom operators will India have 5 years from now, if you were to take a guess?
I think you should have at least 4, which is much more than any other country has in the world. Now, which 4? That I can't answer you.
And one of them will be state.
Sorry?
One of them will be state-owned of the 4.
Yeah, I certainly think so. I mean, I've had a long discussion with Rishi Raj on that. Yeah. But there's always a turnover. For example, when my father opened up the skies in 1993, and you had, what, I think 8 or 10 airlines that came and set up in India. Not even one of them is existing today. But other airlines have come up. When I was civil aviation minister for 3.5 years, you only had 2 or 3 airlines in India. Now you have 8 or 9 airlines in India. Right from Akasa, who's in the big boys club in terms of Boeings as aircraft, to 19-seater airline companies that have come up in India.
Which actually is a great segue, because I want your advice to the current civil aviation minister on the first pieces dealing with all these bomb threats that are happening across airlines, across all flights starting out of India.
So, as I said to you, I'm no one to advise anyone else. And last of all, a cabinet colleague. I think my brother Naidu is more than qualified and will blaze the way in civil aviation in his tenure.
Okay. Now I'll come back to your ministry. The future of the largely China manufactured smartphone is
over.
And what's the future of the MTNL employee?
And let me tell you that. Why? India imported 40,000 crores worth of mobile phones in 2014. Today, India manufactures 35 crore mobiles. India exports 1,29,000 crores worth of mobiles. We're the second largest mobile phone producer in the world today. It's India, India, India. So I would love for the Chinese to come and buy mobiles from India.
Okay, lovely. So I'll end with one last question. The future of the MTNL employee.
I think the future of the MTNL employee is bright. I think options to either join BSNL, any one of the other telcos.
Okay, lovely. Should I do one personal question? We have time for one personal question.
Yeah, of course, anytime.
It's a bit of a cliche, but I want to know your answer. You're stranded on an island. You can pick one companion for an indefinite period of time. The rules are it has to be a politician and it has to be from the opposition. Who do you pick?
If I had been in the Congress, I'd give you a lot of examples.
Okay, chalo, I'll take the duck.
So
thank you so much. Thanks for playing.
we'll open it up to the audience, but before that, just one question. So we've talked so much about the telecom revolution. You've spoken about, how it's going forward. Why do we have so many internet shutdowns, Minister? So whether it is in Manipur, it is Bhima Koregaon, it is Hubli, it is Kashmir, of course.
So let me say this, Vandita ji, that I think first of all, if you look at the number of internet shutdowns, uh, that delta has actually fallen. Having said that, I think it's very important to balance, as I mentioned before in our discussion, the possible misuse of that very powerful instrument that we all have in our hands by antisocial elements. And I think if you are one who wants to spread unrest and unease, then I think it's the right time for regulation and for the state to step in to ensure that doesn't happen. If you look at the process that has been put in place today, it's a very regimented process to be able to put in place an internet shutdown. So either someone at the level of the state chief secretary or the home secretary has to be involved. The collector, the SP has to issue that order. In the event that I cannot consult you before I put that in order in place because the situation is really getting out of hand, then within 24 hours, I have to place that issue before a review committee at the state level or at the central level to make sure that it is accepted that that order needs to be in place. There is a review committee mechanism that looks at this every 4 to 6 days. And the maximum that you can have that in place at the very longest is a period of 15 days. So, and it's used in very sparingly, but when it is used, it is at the uh, understanding and judicious decision making of the state government authority, whoever it may be, or the central government authority, if it is a UT.
You spoke of regulation. Isn't a shutdown a breakdown of regulation?
No,
If I
it's
can
not.
just add to,
No, it's not, because if that, so what's the flip side? The flip side is that are we going to take a risk of arson, loot, violence spreading? And that judicious decision at the end of the day has to be taken by the government.
if I could just add on to that, there was a suggestion in one of the consultation papers by TRA on this subject that today internet is not used only for, like, say, WhatsApp messages or social media access, which generally creates law and order. But it's also used for, say, mobile banking, buying groceries, e-commerce, quick commerce, and everything. So is there a way, they were suggesting, I don't know whether it's technically feasible or not, to segregate where the access to social media, uh, etc., is stopped whenever shutdown is there, but internet banking and these kind of activities can still continue.
See, it's a very fine line. I don't think technology really, I'm not an engineer by background, so I wouldn't want to profess to know the technical answer to your question. But as I see it, I think it's a very fine line, and it's not easy to say that I'll switch off these applications and keep these running. Because the minute you keep the others running, there are ways and means that people get around it to use it negatively. So, as possible as it is to use things positively, so is it easy to use it negatively as well.
We'll open it up to the audience now. Please raise your hand, and when the mic comes to you, please introduce yourself as well. Yeah, the lady here in the second row.
Mr. Minister, my compliments on the growth on the tremendous
Could you also
growth in
please-
the telecom sector, as you spelled out. But you would agree.
No, the mic's gone.
Check.
Hello. 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 Hello.
The phones are working, but the mics are not getting signal.
Could you also please introduce yourself
Yeah,
first?
I'm Poonam Tabas, a journalist turned an academician. About 4 decades in journalism. So first and foremost, my compliments on the tremendous growth in the telecom sector, as you've spelled out. But you would agree that for any development and growth, peace and tranquility are very, very important. So that brings me to the you being the development minister for the Northeast. My question is on Manipur. You said the Prime Minister has made 62 visits to the Northeastern sector. Did he halt in Manipur? What was his message for the people of Manipur is one. The second question is, you said there is drilling under the mountains so as to bring development to the areas in the Northeast. We already have some very bad experiences between development and environment in Uttaranchal. So are we heading the same way there? Thank you.
The Prime Minister is A, apprised, B, following the situation. And as I mentioned to Vandita ji in my very detailed answer, uh, Manipur is not something that has flared up today. It has been a situation through multiple governments. The reason why it also flared up, we're all aware of. Having said that, as I mentioned to you, we are not only sensitized and sensitive towards that, but it's something that we would also like to resolve. The Home Minister, the Minister of State of Home have made multiple visits to Manipur, and it certainly has the full attention of the center. As far as your second question is concerned, I just like to correct that. I didn't say we're drilling under the mountain. I said some tunnels have to be drilled through the mountain, and that's the case for roads as well as for railways. Uh, Ecological concerns are generally done in every developmental project, and there is an ecological study, environment impact assessment report is what it's called, before any project is given sanction to, and I'm sure the railway ministry must have gone through that as well.
Rashmi Saluja from Religare, please ask your question.
Good evening, Mr. Scindia. You had a very, in fact, Rajmata Scindia and Madhurao-ji, you had two iconic leaders in your family. Whom are you more inspired by?
I think I'm inspired by both, and both for different reasons. I think both, I wouldn't want to use the word adapted, but both had at the core of their heart a sense of service to the country, which is what the family has always had. Whether you conveyed that sense of service and did justice to that sense of service uh, while you were erstwhile rulers of the state, or in a new democratic setup in India. Uh, my grandmother, for her fervor, her dedication, her commitment to a cause, for her ability to traverse from Kashmir to Kanyakumari, from Gujarat to the Northeast, in terms of building an institution. My father, for his capability to touch people's lives. Uh, for me, the true meaning of what to be a human is, a good human being is, and those qualities that I try and embody, which I saw in my father, to be able to touch people's lives. Apart from the fact that he was a technocrat and he was able to run his ministries efficiently, but at the core of it, the fact that he was a good human being.
The gentleman. Yeah.
My name is S.C. Kapoor. I have the background of public sector. I was CMD of a large public sector corporation for a decade, in fact. And I was also selected to head ITGC, which ultimately I didn't go. I stayed on here when your father was the minister. I met him also. Now, post-retirement, I've been heading an industry-specific chamber for the man-made fibers, which I do mid-charge after 6 decades of service to the Indian industry. My question is, you talked about the smartphones in the country. Apple have done a good job in this country. But I bought very recently, and I've been their customer for a long time, iPhone 15. And it has been not only giving me problems, but the others also problems. And they are not prone to listening. They've become power centers. What is the remedy to it? If I go to the Consumer Protection Court, of which I'm familiar with, it will take, I'm at the age of 85. It'll take 5 years. I don't know whether I'm there or not. What do I do, Mr. Minister?
So I think, let me say this, that I shall certainly take up your issue. My job is to be able to service every single citizen and every single customer of mine. Though the manufacturing of mobile phones is not in my ambit directly, it's more with METI, the Ministry of Information Technology. But certainly I shall take it up. So post this session, I shall certainly come to you and take your contact details and try and undo a wrong.
Anil Somani of Fostima, please ask your question.
Good evening, sir. You have talked a lot about service in politics, and Anant also talked about royalty. And being where you are today, you could have led a very comfortable and a cushy life. What is it that drives you to keep going on and keep doing this service in the interest of the society in general? I would like you to share, give some message to people in large and to our students also, that what is it that is actually, ye junoon kahan se aata hai?
So that's a very deep question, and it makes me reflect back on my life. And so I went to undergrad in America. I went to college at Harvard, and after graduation, I became an investment banker. So I was a banker in New York, and then Hong Kong, and then moved to Mumbai. And had an amazing experience and a very, very steep learning curve as a banker. And I really cherish my experience those days and what I learned. And I still try and apply what I learned to my current occupation, which is that of a public servant. But if you ask me the difference between that career and this service, the key difference is the ability to make a difference to people's lives. And if you have that ability, and if you're able to do that every single day, you don't go to sleep until you get the last thing done, and you wake up fresh in the morning with full energy to work again. And that's something that must come from the heart. So if you are asking me what's the message I want to send to the youth of today, do what comes to you, not from here, but do what comes to you from here.
From this side of the audience, there's a gentleman there at the back. Can we get the mic to him, please? Yeah.
Yeah, so my name is Amardeep Bajpai. I run a company into digital, and I've been following you. I've seen you at multiple events, met you a couple of times. And one thing, which I wanted to, ask you, I have not seen you age over the years. How do you manage to look so young? And share.
That's a problem in politics. I mean, I don't have an answer for that, but I try and I think it's important in life, and especially I think not necessarily the generations before us, but our generation and the generations to come. I think everyone's life is full of tension. Everyone is constantly in life running on a treadmill. You're always trying to find time for your priorities. And if you're not blaming yourself, but you're blaming the lack of time, which I believe is a cop-out. Because if something is your priority, then that should be a priority. But what I try and do, not very successfully, but what I try and do is I try and do two things. One, I try and watch what I eat. And the other is whenever I can, I try and be as regular with regard to either a sport or a workout, uh, because more than anything else, it also distracts you. My father used to be an avid cricket player and then an avid golfer. Unfortunately, I don't have the time to play that much cricket now because of surfeit of time. But I used to ask him why, and he always used to say it's apart from being a sport, it's also a distraction for me, because when you're on the field, 20 every minute and every second, you're engaged in that sport, and your mind is off other things. Otherwise, your mind also has the ability to take you over. So that's important.
Mr. Scindia, if I can ask you one question, the question answer session. In the telecom sector, AGR was one.
You're always taking the help of papers and the mobile phone. Everyone else here is coming up with their own questions from their heart.
Because during our
See, even he can't do without my mobile phone.
the issue of AGR, adjusted gross revenue.
We were on a different track here.
Okay.
Yeah, I thought that is over. Moving on from there to this, back to your ministry. The issue of adjusted gross revenue, of course, where the government has done a lot in terms of easing the burden on the telecom operators, but there were some arithmetical error issues which they had raised, and there was a curative petition which they had filed in Supreme Court, which was dismissed recently. So have they approached you, or is the government going to do anything about it, or is it a closed chapter?
So the Supreme Court has issued a verdict. And at this point of time, as it stands today, that verdict has to be followed. If there is a change, you will be the first to know.
Robin Samuel from ABC Coffee, AB Coffee. Could you please ask your question?
Good evening, sir. So my question is, how many cups of coffee do you consume in a day, and which is your favorite type of coffee?
So yeah, I am a coffee drinker, and I prefer my coffee black. And I drink. I try and moderate it, because people who drink coffee generally end up drinking too many cups of coffee. So I try and stick to not more than 3 cups a day, because too much of coffee is not very good. Coffee has some great positive attributes as well, but you should keep it to a certain limit. And my personal limit for myself is 3 cups a day. But I love my coffee.
Sudesh Kumar from Smash.
Good evening, sir. I have a question for you. If you could answer, please. Do you get time to play the games? We are from Smash, and we are into different segment of games, like VR, arcade. So do you get time to play games?
Oh, of course. If you do not play sports, then sports is not only a physical exercise. Sports is extremely important. 2 things are very, very important. One, I'm not able to do as often as I should. The other, I am. So sports and meditation, both are extremely important. Mental agility is not only about your brain. Mental agility is also about your physical well-being. And many of us take that for granted too often. So I think regular physical exercise is extremely important. And for me, I try and make it as important as a daily practice.
Ishan Arora from Catwalk.
Hi, good evening. I'm going to also read from my phone and join Mr. Jha here. As is often said, there reside many Indias in one India. This aphorism captures the truth of our rich diversity, but the same diversity can and often leads to disconnect of one region or regions from others. And this disconnect, to a very large extent, deepens because of all that is not known, not understood, as I've noticed in my travels to the region, especially Shillong. So my question pertains to your work as a minister of donor, that beyond the connection through infrastructure and statutory measures, are there works and efforts, soft measures, if you will, in play to promote effective cultural exchange, such that allows for improved understanding and connect of states that comprise the Northeast with the rest of the country?
What's your name again?
Ishan Arora.
Ishan, you couldn't be more bang on, right? So let me give you an analogy. So infrastructure is like your flesh and bone. You need it. It's mandatory, right? But people-to-people connectivity is like your heart, right? And as important as brick and mortar is, many more times more important is an emotional connect. And that's one of the main underpinnings that we are today working at in Dona. So one of the things that we are planning, and I'm glad you've given me that segue, and I'd love for this to be also propagated by Indian Express, is we are holding a 3-day cultural festival in December, roughly around the 6th to 8th, and we've called it the Ashtalakshmi Cultural Festival, where we will have all our 8 states in all their grandness in Delhi, exhibiting not only their capabilities, but also their soft strength, their architecture, their people, their culture, their music. Amazing repertoire of music in the Northeast. I mean, it's mind-blowing, beyond world class. Their handicrafts, their handlooms, eri silk, some of the stuff they produce, you will not get it anywhere in the world, right? Bamboo. And I think that needs to be propagated, forget through rest of India, needs to be propagated across the world. So I've actually put together task force in my ministry that are looking at all of these initiatives. I've got a tourism task force in place. What I'm looking at, and it's a little premature, but now you got it out of my mouth, is that within every state, creating a 2-3 day circuit where we want to make sure that we have world-class facilities that are put, right? So that comes on to not India's map, that must come on to the global map as places to go. I've got an Agarwood task force in place. So many of us don't know, I didn't know for sure, that a lot of the oud that goes into perfumes is actually produced from the Northeast, right? And India's capability is close to 15-20% of the world's market, but it's not organized. And so we need to organize that. So I've got an Agarwood task force that's working on all the steps that need to be taken. I've got a task force working on palm oil, that huge capabilities there, on handlooms, on horticulture, right? You will not get pineapples like you get from the Northeast anywhere in the world. Okay? When I was civil aviation minister, through Krishi Udan, which is a scheme that we initiated, we were transporting the Northeast horticulture produce, pineapple, jackfruit, king chilies, not to Bombay, Delhi, Hyderabad, and wherever else. We were sending it to Singapore. We were sending it to Germany. We were sending it across the world. So the potential there is tremendous. The soft strengths there are unbelievable. That's what we need to grow. And my commitment to you, that's what I'm going to concentrate on.
Dr. Sona Vikas of the Asian School of Business.
Good evening, sir. So I'm an educator and professor, and we have more than 3,200 students. We are dealing with a generation of youth which is too much addicted to the mobile phones. The screen time has increased, the attention spans have reduced. There are a lot of behavioral problems that have come up, and a lot of mental health issues also. So my question to you is that what are some of the key priorities of the government in channelizing this youth towards national building?
In channelizing?
The youth towards nation building or national development.
So I think that your precursor to your question doesn't have much connectivity with your root question, right? So you were talking about the issues with regard to the obsession with not necessarily telecom, but information through an instrument. And my only advice to you and through you to all your students and your wards would be that in life, it's very important to maintain a balance. The relationships that you build in the classroom or outside the classroom by spending time with each other cannot be substituted by a WhatsApp message or an SMS that you send on the phone. Okay, I am the telecom minister, but I'm still advocating that there has to be a balance that you maintain in life. Difficult to do because every time you see that light blinking, your hands itch to see, what is in that treasure box that's come to you. But nevertheless, that balance must be maintained. To your question on nation building, I think each individual in our country must have the belief that he and or she must contribute towards the concept of nation building. And every little, just to give you a Hindi analogy, त्योहार होता है या धार्मिक कार्यक्रम होता है तो हम यज्ञ करते हैं और यज्ञ पंडित जी के द्वारा किया जाता है और फिर अंत में जो लोगों ने यज्ञ किया है पूजा पाठ के बाद हम लोग आहुति देते हैं। तो उस यज्ञ में, राष्ट्र के निर्माण के यज्ञ में 140 करोड़ एक एक नागरिक को अपनी आहुति देनी पड़ेगी, तभी वो यज्ञ सफल हो पाएगा।
So we'll just take last two questions from here. The two ladies here who've been raising their hands for a very long time. Yeah, one and then at the back. Yeah. Then we'll bring it to an end.
Well, hi, I'm Ajasvi Gupta and I'm a journalist. So, sir, you come from a very strong academic background. I think you've done your graduation from Stephens, followed by abroad, Harvard and Stanford, if I'm not wrong. So, but also you come from a very rich heritage and a lineage, right? Which I'm sure would have been the pivot for you entering into politics. Otherwise, it's not every day that you leave, you look at somebody leaving a well-settled investment banker job in New York and, enter into politics. I think the BJP membership drive, it might be a step in the right direction for youth also to come into politics. But then again, the very basic narrative about politics still revolves around the idea of, backdoor deals and gloomy ideas are still revolving around politics, especially for the youth. So how do we change this narrative and say, how has the membership drive, maybe which has, been a step in the right direction, how has it impacted or maybe, kind of fostered the way ahead for youth in politics, for us to maybe have an idea of leaving an MBA and rather coming into politics? So what are your views on that?
So my only advice to you would be have a positive outlook in life. For all the gloomy narratives, the pessimistic outlooks, and how we all of us look at our netas, right? There are a lot of people in that group of 750 if you combine Rajya Sabha and Lok Sabha. And probably, I don't know, Vandita Rishiraj, about 10, 15,000 MLAs across the country. Yeah. Probably more Jila Panchayat Adhyakshas, Janpad Adhyakshas, Nagar Palika Adhyakshas. That are actually working from their heart and soul to contribute to this country. Right? It's very easy to paint everyone with one brush. But at that moment, don't forget that you're also dismissing all of those that are working with a true sense of purpose to build this country. And one shouldn't do that. One. Two, for the point that you made with regard to, and I'm going to put it in a more aggressive manner, for those from a privileged background and those from certain families that have entered into politics. What about for the rest? Again, it goes back to the point that Vandita started with. It's generally those sort of people that end up in her bracket of high profile. But those are the exceptions, let me tell you. In this milieu in India, there are hundreds and lakhs of people that have just decided that they want to do public service, and they don't come from privileged backgrounds. They don't have an easy segue into politics. They do it the hard way. My Minister of State in my department in telecom, Mr. Chandrasekhar Pembasani, entrepreneur, made it on his own in the US, spent 20, 25 years there, built a company with his own hands, bottom up, hugely successful, right? He's just given it all up to come back and contribute to India. He's today a member of parliament. He won the election. He's today a minister. No background of politics. And there are millions like that. So I'm going to go back to the point I made to someone else, that don't go from here. In life, if you get it from here, nothing can stop you.
The last question. Yeah, the lady here, please. No, that's the last question. Unfortunately, we have to wind up now. I'm sorry, but Minister has to go too.
Good evening, sir. Firstly, thank you, because somebody like you inspires somebody like me who's also completed education in the States and has come back. My name is Mansi Agarwal. We run an infrastructure and digital company, and we cater to small and medium scale companies. I have one question which I would like to go back to your, firstly, congratulations on adding new customers and users to BSNL. My question is, how do you prioritize citizen engagement and feedback in your decision-making process? And this addresses the BSNL part also, where I feel customer satisfaction precedes the retention part. And also in your membership tribe, where, the more the youth is joining, want to pursue politics as a method of reaching Jan Seva as opposed to a career. So addressing both the topics, but through the same question, how do you prioritize citizen engagement and feedback?
So let me give you a couple of examples. So I think that the first thing that people have to understand, that in life, you don't have the solutions to all the problems in the world. And I think if you start with that premise, then you're starting on the right track. Which means what? Which means speak less, listen more. Difficult thing to do, especially in our profession, because we love the mic. Just can't get enough of it, right? Second, make sure that you have as wide a group that you can hear as possible. So in every ministry that I've had the privilege of serving, I've always set up advisory groups, right? So whether it was commerce and industry, or it was power, or it was civil aviation, steel, now telecommunications and donor, where engagement with people who are stakeholders in that sector. And what is your role? Your role as a minister is not one of a regulator. Your role as a minister is not one of a boss. Your role as a minister is one of a facilitator and one of a public servant. And therefore, what do you have to do? You have to hear the pain points of people and resolve it. So today in the communications ministry, I have 6 stakeholder groups, right from my ISPs to my telecom service providers, to my OEMs, to my manufacturing companies, to even educational institutions and academia, because that's where a lot of innovation happens, right? What's the path forward for us? So that's one example for you. The second example for you is in civil aviation, and I'm trying to do the same now in telecom. I set up a public grievance mechanism system called Air Seva. And I don't know whether you guys have used it. It's at the back of your boarding pass. Every ticket, I mandated that it's got to be at the back of every boarding pass, and it's got to be announced on every flight, incoming or outgoing. And anyone who has a grievance can get onto that portal. And as minister, I would be monitoring that portal on a daily basis in terms of the number of grievances that have come in, the number of grievances that have been resolved. And there was a little tweak that I'd made. Initially, the resolution was done by the ministry officials. So I, as a customer, if I have complained, and Vandita Mishra ji is the officer in charge, she would respond to me and she would deem it as if she has satisfied me and say that this is closed. And I said, that's not good enough. I want that power of closing that file to be in the hands of the customer, not in Vandita ji's hands. So pursue the customer until he's fully or she is fully satisfied, and then only is the grievance closed. So that's the second example. And the third example for you is in my grassroots, in my constituency. So when you're chosen as a public representative, you're given a mandate for 5 years. And what should the blueprint be for 5 years? That blueprint should not be defined by you alone. It should be defined by the stakeholders within that constituency. And so in every district, I've set up that stakeholder group in terms of what should the blueprint and the path be for our area. And when you have that public advocacy and things come from the grassroots upwards, then you're able to solve people's problems much more effectively.
That question and that answer on citizen participation in decision making is a wonderful note to end the Adda on. Thank you, Minister, for giving us your time.
Thank you, Vandita ji. Thank you, Radmanji, and thank you for Anant, who's not
May
here.
I now invite Raj Kamal Jha, Chief Editor, the Indian Express Group, to present a token of appreciation. The illustration is by Suvajit Day. I would now like to invite Dr. Rashmi Saluja, Executive Chairperson, Religare Enterprises Limited, to present him with the bouquet. As we conclude, I would like to thank our partners, presenting partner Religare Enterprises Limited, co-presenting partner Fostima, associate partner PSB Bank, Upgrad and Devans, coffee partner Up Coffee, entertainment partner Smash, beverage partner Catwalk, and a hospitality partner Le Meridien. Please stay back and join us for cocktails and snacks.